We've got a special guest on today. His name is Mike Araiza, and he is a former controller for Valero, a petroleum expert, and a former Navy vet. We're going to talk to Mike about some of the closure activity that's going on, and he is often referenced in many of the articles that we talk about where we've got gas prices in California going to the moon, and it's also a matter of national defense. Here we go with the Mike Araiza interview. Mike, what's the update on, how about the Valero refinery? That's kind of the hot topic of the hour, right? When is that set to close?
The last thing I saw was January. It's like I had stated in what you read on the last podcast. Their contracts were canceled 2.5 months ago now. And
yeah.
I was talking with the professor for a while last night, Professor Niche. Me and him and Stan Ellis formed an alliance about 2 months ago, collaboration, and San Joaquin Valley crude coming north on the Crimson Line has stopped to the Valero stopped taking that, and it looks like they're going to pull it in January, and now it looks like they're going to be shutting down their Wilmington refinery too. So we're going to go from 7 refineries. With Valero Benicia going down, that'll be 6 refineries. Well, refineries, for the most part, are the same with the exception of Valero. It's different in that two things. It's the most efficient refinery, even back in '69 when it was built. It's still one of the most efficient refineries in the country. It runs differently in the fact that crude oil comes in and it goes out to the immediate units. There's one control center running the whole refinery, whereas in another refinery, you got someone on the CAT unit or the crude unit. They work separate units with separate control rooms with separate operators. So Valero, everybody's cross-trained, and then 2 board controllers run 8 major units, where in another refinery they just do that with 1. So right there, that's a major efficiency difference. And the a big difference too. It's like for a fact that 50 to 55% of a crude oil charge rate is converted to gasoline. In a typical refinery. With Valero, it's closer to 70%. That's why, some people say, well, we're losing 17 or 18% of the gasoline, produced between Phillips 66 of Wilmington and Valero. Now, Valero kicks that to 20 to 22%. And, when you think that's not that big a deal, back when Shell went to shut down, and Lockyer and Barbara Boxer intervened and basically twisted their arm to where they would sell the refinery to Fly & J. And back then, that was only like 3 or 4% of the state's gasoline being produced, and they were concerned about prices. They were concerned about supply back then. So back then they understood, but now they're totally clueless.
So the number that we see, we often see 17.5% attributed to both the Benicia and then the Wilmington, but you're saying it's more like 22 when you look at the actual production. Is that correct?
It is, Sean, because there's one unit that's pretty much common in every refinery, and it's called a hydrocracker. Chevron calls it like an isomax. And those units will produce different. They basically take in the same type of feed to the unit, same type of heavier oil comes in the unit, but at Chevron in Richmond, that unit makes gasoline and jet fuel, and they adjust the temperatures to make more or less of one or the other. Down at Fly & J, that same unit makes diesel. It takes its feed and turns it to diesel. Benicia, back when it was built in '69, back then Humble Oil and changed their name to Exxon, they saw the vision of, hey, we're going to have a lot of the economy's going to pick up. There's going to be more and more people driving. And you're thinking back to '69, and they're seeing this. So their hydrocracker unit makes nothing but gasoline. It doesn't make diesel. It doesn't make jet. So 100% of what goes in that unit comes out as, for the most part, as a gasoline component. So per barrel, crude oil, the 145,000 barrels, instead of 50 to 55% being converted to gasoline, Valero converts between 70 and maybe 73% of it's converted to gasoline. So, that's, people are kind of taking, 17, 18%, but they're going on that typical average. Just, people really don't know.
All right.
You know what I'm saying? So Valero, it's going to be a bigger impact. At 20% minimum, I think closer to 22%. And that's going to push us to 40, 43, 44% being imported from across the ocean.
Yeah, that to me, I'm a real estate guy, Mike. So I'm, but I'm a quick learner. So I'm
Mhm.
having to kind of compile all these facts, and I'm sitting back looking at this. How are we allowing this to happen? Is my question, because it seems like we are. I mean, when you're forced to import massive amounts of your domestic usage,
Right.
that is the wrong direction to go. And then you've seen California leadership, specifically Gavin Newsom, just kind of fumble around on this issue. And to me, it's basically left the entire West Coast completely naked from a standpoint of how we're going to fly anything if you have any major upsetting issue, you know?
I'm the senior operating engineer now at Chico State, so I was kicking back on. I had to work Thanksgiving, and it just popped into my head because we have these meetings with Stan Ellis and Professor Miche, and some of our biggest concerns were maybe a tanker being hijacked or a problem with the dock or refinery downtime because, as you know, we have no incoming pipelines. So we're basically totally reliant on that. And I'm sitting there going, well, we had a tanker hijacked in the Indian Ocean by the Iranians just recently. We had a fire at Chevron. We had a fire with a huge fire on a cargo ship at the port of Los Angeles, so bad they had to tow it away and out from the port. We've had the leaking Olympic line up there near Seattle,
Yeah. The
and
Olympic
weather.
pipeline. Yeah.
Yeah, and the weather events. Um, and I wrote, and you mentioned it on your last podcast, was these weather events excuse me, are real. When my wife went home to see her family in China, and a typhoon went through Hong Kong and Guangzhou, and it shut down shipping for like 3 days. I actually cut the Valero Refinery before because storms were holding up the tankers up in Alaska. One time we were 6 hours away from totally shutting down because storms were delaying the tankers that much. So these are all. It's like I had wrote to I wrote to Katie Grimes and she put out that article. These are real world events that are occurring in real world time. And these, as me and Stan and the professor had discussed quite a few times, these events become even more critical as we become more and more and more dependent on this fuel, and the jet fuel and diesel, all of that coming from overseas. So right now, our military is extremely vulnerable. The amount of fuel that they use, it takes 100,000 gallons of jet for one KC-10 and one C5 sortie, KC-5 fuel extender and one C5, you're looking at 100,000 gallons. If the supply gets the supply to the base and all the other bases gets inadvertently cut off, it's not a very long time, especially if we're having some situation with Taiwan or somewhere where they're out of fuel. The military's grounded, Navy and Air Force.
And the armed forces are the biggest consumer of oil products, correct? I mean, they are number one in consumption just due to the nature of what they do.
Well, we consume a lot of gasoline, and I mean, I took my wife to San Francisco a few days ago, and the traffic. I was thinking about all this when I was driving. I'm like, good Lord, we have shortages. The military consumes a lot. If there's true shortages, they'll commandeer. I'm sure they will commandeer civilian like jet fuel supply. But still, it's not very long until they are in trouble. It depends on what the event is that causes the shortages from all this fuel being shipped from overseas. But you got a couple combination of events. Certainly, if you have something happen to one of the ports, Port of Los Angeles, it's just like you were saying. It's crazy. You just make yourself extremely vulnerable. We were vulnerable 3 years ago when Marathon. And the reason why I don't count like ConocoPhillips and Rodeo, I don't count them. I don't count Marathon and Martinez because they're making the renewable diesel. They're not feeding crude oil anymore. You took 270,000 barrels a day of crude oil off the table. They're making diesel and diesel. So all the gasoline, all the jet fuel. And another thing people don't think about is propane. That's big time in the North State up here in the mountains and all that. That's
Yep.
gone. Gasoline's gone. Jet fuel's gone. All of that you're getting from overseas.
And let's run through. I did a quick list from one of your articles. We start with Iraq. We go to Brazil, Guyana, Ecuador, Canada, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Colombia, Argentina. I mean, any one of those countries could go through a period of instability, let's call it that, which would make things just tricky, right?
And that's where you got to. I hear this a lot, where it's kind of one bridge is crossing over the other. That is crude oil. That's mainly crude oil. Okay, and yes, crude oil. We get crude oil cut off, we will still have refineries running. And if that gets affected, then certainly that just totally cripples us, because we're getting the fuel from overseas. The actual fuel is Singapore, South America, and India. One side note is how some of these countries are buying Russian crude oil to make our product that we should be making here. So we inadvertently are supporting the Ukrainian war. But the main effect on those countries you mentioned is crude oil. And yes, any instability. It's like the Iranians got a hold of a fuels oil tanker that was heading to Singapore. They got it into their territorial waters, and our Navy couldn't get there in time. These are all real world things that can occur. It's, Sean, it's insane what the position we have put ourselves in. It's absolutely crazy. And I didn't, I've been farming and working at working at Chico State for about 15 years now. I hadn't really focused on Valero and all these other issues. And then I heard about Phillips 66 going down, and I'm thinking, oh, that's not good, But then when I heard Valero was going down, I'm like, what the heck is going on? Valero's, like I said before, is the most efficient refinery, biggest money-making refinery per barrel of oil in the state. It's like, why are they shutting down? So I started digging in then. I wasn't gaining any traction, so I actually drafted a 9-page brief of my own. I took a day of vacation. I went down to Sacramento, and I went to made appointments and went to different assembly members down there. And the last one I saw was Stan Ellis from Bakersfield. And, he read the brief, and he asked me, he goes, "Did you write this?" I go, "Yeah, I wrote it." And he goes, "Well, why are you doing this? Because here I'm just Joe Civilian going down to the Capitol, running around with these little briefs in my hand." And I told him, because I see the largest economical collapse of any state in the history of this country coming into the summer of 2026. Period. Shortages across the board. And he just said, "I totally agree with you." And that was kind of where the collaboration began. He called me a week later and said, "Mike, you got to come down to Bakersfield." And I was like, "Okay, Stan." I said, "Sure." No, he says, "I'll pay your expenses. You got to come down." And it's kind of funny, Sean. I saw Professor Miche on a couple other podcasts or videos, where him and Stan. I thought, I'd really like to meet that guy. He really knows what the hell he's talking about. I mean, he's really, his math, he's just got it down. And so Stan goes, "Yeah, come down here, Professor Miche. We're going to." So, oh, okay.
It's an interesting mismatch, isn't it? It's like you got people popping up from different industries going, "Hey, this doesn't make any sense at all." Right. There's some real exposure here, not only to the consumer, but from a freedom standpoint, a defense standpoint.
Yes, every base in California, Arizona, and Nevada are at risk.
And so let's talk about Arizona and Nevada. I think half of Arizona's fuel comes from California, and 88% of Nevada's comes from California. So, it's all interconnected.
Well, that's Phoenix. It's mainly Phoenix. I think Tucson and that they have one line that runs from the center of the country, but it doesn't go to Phoenix. So it's just Phoenix. Phoenix. If we go down, they're out, and then Vegas, Reno, and everything within Nevada. Yeah, we supply it. The pipeline comes up Highway 680. Goes through the Grizzly Marshland to Sacramento, laterals up to Reno, and then it continues on north up here to where I'm at the very north end of the Central Valley in Chico. But yeah, it's a fact. All of, if you're saying 80, 88, 90%, pretty much all of Nevada is the fly by.
It doesn't leave much, does it?
No, it doesn't leave anything. And their
No.
cities of any consequence, Reno and Vegas, are totally supplied by us. So, well, 88%. Okay, well, that's okay. But, the two significant cities they have there, they're totally dependent on us. Phoenix is totally dependent on us.
Yeah, it kind of blows my mind that this is where we sit. I read every now and then where you'll see people from the left state that, hey, this is a normal shutdown of a consumer product we no longer need. This is happening because we are shifting towards, green energy. And all I keep reading is that the demand for oil products is consistent. And in California, you are looking at, I want to say it's 36 to 40 million gallons a day. And that is consistent day in, day out. There isn't a reduction in demand.
There wasn't, Sean. Professor did a study with two other professors from Berkeley talking about that. The consumption in California, it went down during COVID and came back up and above where was actually at.
Which makes total sense. Yeah.
We may have lost 1 million gallons a day of consumption, but what the California Energy Commission was saying, not anywhere near the amount of EVs were going to come online, not anywhere near their predictions. So, yeah, we're still going through 37 to 38 million gallons, and jet fuel consumption in that time frame has actually gone up like 15 or 20%.
But we're going to cut production by 22% when both of these refineries go down. That's
22% on top of Marathon and ConocoPhillips Rodeo. That's 22% on top of their 20%.
It's yeah. And so tell me about I know the big article that came out was with the professor that you're referencing was gas in California at $8 to maybe 10 to 12 on the upper end. What would an event on the upper end pushing that to $12 a gallon? What would that look like to you? What's something that's already happened that if it happens this summer would push gas to that price in California?
Shortages caused by any of the above reasons.
Okay.
I mean, and the thing is, you're there with Valero going down too. It's like last night we were discussing this, and it's like you could almost walk to the damn walk across the Pacific and not get your feet wet because how many damn tankers are coming in, and we can't. The ports can't handle that. They're maxed out. They're actually doing more than experts even thought that they could do. That right now. Now you're going to add another 5 million gallons a day of gasoline that's being consumed. Another, 14 to 15,000 barrels of jet fuel a day gone. See, Valero just makes when they distill their crude oil, what diesel and what jet comes out of the crude oil, that's all they make. They don't convert any more heavier hydrocarbons, heavier oils into diesel or jet. They make whatever distills out of the crude jet and whatever distills out of the crude diesel. That's what they make. They clean it up and they ship it. And everything that's heavier, Valero converts it all to gasoline. So, on a good day, you're 4.6 million, probably 5 million gallons a day gone.
Gone. And that's got to come from somewhere. Otherwise, you've got a shortage, correct?
That's correct.
So walk me through. I'm a real estate guy, and I am watching the governor of California tell the California Energy Commission, hey, can you round up a buyer for either of these refineries, specifically the Valero, and put something together? And Valero is taking a $1.1 billion charge to shut it down. So there's this massive disconnect between leadership and the actual business of oil production. Tell me your thoughts on that.
I think he's absolutely crazy. Nobody's going to buy the refinery. You got the regulations, all the fines, the ridiculous fines that they're being, the regulations. It's like the CEO of Chevron said, they've been at war with the refining industry for the last 25 years. I bring up this example that, and I did that, what you read before, is they paid over $800 million for the refinery in 2000. They bought it from Exxon, and they started, there were some days not too long after that where we were making $4.2 million a day which is, really good. They made that investment. They're making that money back. Bill Agreehy, the CEO back then, was absolutely thrilled, and needless to say, because I think it was their first or second refinery purchase. They've gone from that situation. They tried to follow whatever regulations the state puts in, make honest efforts to follow what they want, to the point of here they are now. They've lost, they've written so much off on the losses. Another thing with Valero is they don't own crude oil. When Exxon owned it, it was one thing. Exxon, a lot of the Alaskan North Slope and Hondo, the offshore platforms were Exxon owned. So the crude we were bringing in was Exxon owned. So they would, they do the business thing, sell it to the refinery. Even if the refinery margins weren't that good, and even if they're taking a little bit of loss, they were making a ton of money off their crude oil and writing off a little bit of loss on the refinery. Valero doesn't have that flexibility. If they're taking a loss, they're just taking a loss. They can't make that. And now even Chevron even Chevron, who owns a lot of their own crude oil, they're sitting there saying, hey, I'm not saying we're going to leave. I think was the CEO's words. I'm not saying we're going to leave, but we're unless things change real quick, we're looking at it.
Right.
That's the biggest.
And by the way, we're moving our headquarters to Houston.
After 140 years. I mean, that's amazing. That doesn't hit on Newsom at all. It's like, hey, guy, look, they've been here 140 years and they're leaving.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's mind blowing to me that there isn't more on this out there. Is it because people are just struggling in their daily life and they don't want to hear about gas prices going to the moon? They feel like they can't do anything about it. It's big oil. Their exposure to big oil is watching a TV show, right?
Yes, and their family and on their phones and their iPads, and that's the biggest part of the problem. It's like even with me, Sean, I really wasn't paying attention to it. The gas prices have been in the $4 range, $5 range for a while now. Saying okay, but then I heard Phillips 66. Didn't really start digging in. Then when I heard Valero, I'm repeating myself here, but I'm like, that is the most efficient, most advanced refinery in the state, and they are pulling the plug. What the hell is going on? So I started digging in. It's like, you got to be kidding me. Marathon shut down. The Martinez refinery shut down. They took Rodeo and forced them to go, basically talk them to go on a diesel. And not the CEO, Stan Ellis was telling me that they are losing like $100 million a quarter. And they're up on their targeted renewable diesel rates. They're like at 45,000 barrels a day, and they're losing like $100 million a quarter.
Yeah, that is not a sustainable business model.
That's what the CEO said. This is not acceptable and not sustainable.
No.
I guess fourth quarter of 2024, they lost $180 million in 3 months.
So you can see why it was interesting. Valero indicated they were going to either idle the refinery, they're going to maybe try and sell it, they were maybe going to close it down, and then they just went straight to, we're closing her down.
Yeah, and part of that is they know this hydrogen generation unit that makes hydrogen and CO2. Okay, and I had pointed this out is. That unit, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District said, well, they've been doing this and releasing these pollutants for like 20 years. And I'm like, no, the unit's been online since 1969. And if there have been any issues with cancer, reproductive harm, or anything else, in Benicia, the surrounding area, the refinery, my dad worked there for 35 years, not a health problem. No health, no cancer, no issues in Benicia, no issues in the industrial park. But then this hydrogen generation unit that every other refinery has pretty much in the world that just makes hydrogen and carbon dioxide, somehow it is causing cancer, and it is doing this and doing that, and they throw the $82 million fine on them. And then coincidentally, the Air District changed the way in which the fine is distributed. So a big portion of it goes to the offended community, which again has had, if there was elevated cancer or anything like that, we'd be hearing about it left and right till we can't stand to hear it anymore. The news would be reporting it. They're causing cancer. They're causing that. Is not happening. It's never happened.
Right.
But here's Benicia getting a big portion of that fine, and the mayor of Benicia is on the air board. Well, help me out here. I mean, It's like,
what am I missing? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I wrote back to that guy. So, well, congratulations, you got your money, but your cash cow's gone, and nobody's
Yeah.
going to come in to bail it out. You had
Yeah.
they used to Exxon, like, my dad was it's kind of cool about that refinery. You can do multiple things that you can't do in another refinery. So like my dad was the assistant fire chief for a while, and they paid for Benicia's fire equipment. They would take Benicia firefighters with them to Reno Fire School or to Texas A&M firefighting school. They would pay for them to go, train them up, work with them. They obviously, for the schools and stuff like that, Exxon was always contributing, always a partner of the community. And I don't think Valero was any different, although probably in the last few years, it's like you're choking them out of existence. They had a really good business partner, major business partner in the community, and it's gone now.
It's just totally gone. And, one of the responses I saw from Gavin Newsom and co. was that they were going to, I think, allow an additional 2,000 oil wells to come online, something like that. It was something that they could point to and say, hey, we're doing something, but it doesn't really have much of an overall impact relative to these refineries closing.
It has zero impact. I hear
zero impact.
Say, well,
okay.
I hear people say, oh, it's a step in the right direction. No, it's not. You need to produce offshore. You need to produce around LA, Santa Ynez. You need to bring those oils in that are now. Bring those in now. And the problem, it's like with and you probably know this, you probably heard about it, but the Crimson Pipeline coming north, that San Joaquin Valley crude is what they call, it has naphtha, which is like gasoline, but it's also very thick in asphaltene components. So it's tarry. That line needed to maintain a minimum of like 40 or 50,000 barrels a day. I think it was rated for 250,000 barrels a day back when the refineries were cranking. But anyway, when Valero shut down, Valero takes about 24,000 barrels a day. They shut down the San Joaquin Valley crude. So that's why we think they're going down in January. And now that pipeline is the only refinery taking any San Joaquin Valley crude is PBF. And I pretty doggone sure that line is down now. I mean, you got the obvious economics. The price of crude oil is low, and you're at a minimum, well below minimum flow. But I think because of physical limitations, the line's down, and getting it back up is going to be a bear. So,
tell me about that. So what is Valero doing right now? They are getting ready to idle. The Phillips 66 is already at idle, correct? The Wilmington?
Oh, yeah. October 17th.
Okay, that got idled. And so Valero is saying, hey, or we're assuming January 2026, next month, the same thing is going to happen there.
It's like a shutdown. It's like a shutdown for maintenance. But you're not coming back up, and you're not going to be fixing anything. You clear the equipment like you would for a regular turnaround or maintenance period. You're not going to come back up. So you'll run the crude tanks down to minimum, and you're ramping. As you're getting really low in the crude tanks, you'll ramp the crude rate down. The other units, you'll ramp them down, and then you'll stay at minimum rates. And then you got that's another thing. It's talking with the Stan, the professor, talking about, well, we're going to use these tanks and use it as a port. Well, there's only, we'll use the tanks at Valero. Well, most of the tanks are not product tanks. They're not tanks you can use for gasoline, jet, or diesel. Only a third, maybe 40% of the actual tankage at the refinery is tankage for product to be shipped out. You got intermediate tanks, you got water tanks, you got the crude tanks. You got the coker feed tanks. That stuff's like asphalt. You keep it, 250 to 300 degrees, so it stays fluid and flows. You got cat unit feed tanks, just all these different slop tanks. You got all these different tanks, and they also count the propane and butane spheres as tanks, which you're not going to be putting. You will have no propane, and you're not going to be putting gasoline in those. So their actual ability to even use as like a port or a terminal is really limited.
And when you shut down one of these refineries, I remember, and I'm pretty sure it was you specifically that said there's only a few people that can bring these refineries back up after they've been shut down after large scale production. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You're not. I mean, you don't have to be a refinery expert to know that you don't turn a key and start the thing back up. That is not the way it works. You gotta leak
yeah.
check. You gotta O2 free. You gotta O2 free everything. You gotta pressure check everything. You gotta heat everything up. It's if there's so many things. The main thing, the main point to the question you're asking is a lot of things need to be done by qualified people that know how to do it.
Right. Right.
And what starting the thing about Valero that's going to it's like I was the thing about Valero is the crude goes in, any refinery, the crude oil goes in, gets cleaned up, gets heated up, and it gets distilled in two different towers. Now, what the crude unit makes, the different oils, those in another refinery will typically get cooled down, sent to a feed tank, and then those tanks are pumped back up to the next unit. The stuff's heated back up. That's where Valero's super efficient, because they don't do any of that. But basically, it goes to your cat cracking unit, your coker units, your cat feed hydrotreater unit, your sulfur recovery unit. They're all different units with their own control rooms and with their own operators. So like on a coker, you'll typically have 4 or 5 operators in another refinery and the board guy or gal. At Valero, you have 1 operator on the coker. That's it. And the thing is with all of these units, that isn't so much as much a problem as when you start that refinery up, all of those units come up together. There's no other refinery. Well, I should say there's a few refineries, but Valero was the first one ever built that was like that, where you're bringing the crude unit on, you're starting the cat unit up, you're starting the coker up, sulfur gas, fuel gas, MEA, all these different units. You're starting them up simultaneously at the same time. So that knowledge, I mean, I could probably do it, but I definitely have to go in and do a refresher. It's been a while. But that type of knowledge is rare. You can't, like when Flying J, Shell sold their refinery Flying J down in Bakersfield. Well, they didn't know they were selling it. So a lot of the Shell employees had already arranged for transfers to, back then Shell Martinez refineries in Texas. So when I got down there, a lot of those employees were already gone. Some of them, some of the guys that were still there were going to retire out. They kind of did a quick handover to some of us that came in with Flying J, and then they retired. So your amount of qualified personnel dwindles. It dwindles away really quickly. With Flying J, they had some guys from Exxon, from like Louisiana, from Baytown. And we're talking guys around my father's age, maybe, that just had a lot of experience. But they had even at that, they had experience typically in one unit. They didn't have experience in all of those units, and that's where Valero is really troublesome, because you have to be able to start up all those units almost at the same time, bring them all up online together, and that's the biggest challenge. And that's where I'm really, when I was thinking, I wrote that at the point of no return. If Valero, you lose too many qualified people, it is at the point of no return. It is going to be very, very difficult to start that refinery back up.
And that's what I'm referencing. I've got on my split screen, I've got that article up. Has California's oil and gas industry hit the point of no return? And I think that's what I saw. And I'm like, it seems like it has. It doesn't seem like this is if, it seems like when a number of these things take place, because some life events will happen, some history will happen. And because you've got so few refineries online right now, there's only one way for that price to go up, and it's, price to go, and it's not down.
That's correct. And the shortages, that's what you're spot on. We're there when they forced Marathon and, it's like 17,000 barrels a day of renewable diesel of the refinery that used to do 170,000 barrels a day of crude oil. It's like, really, people?
The math doesn't math, does it? It doesn't make any sense.
Close. You don't have to be a professor to figure that one out.
Yeah.
But when they went down, again, like I said, I didn't start digging into this until I heard Valero shut down. I'm finding all these things out and learning about this. And that was, it's why I mentioned Flying J and Boxer and Lockyer. Even back then in 04, 05, they knew that a 3 or 4% loss of gasoline production was significant in California. Now we're at 42%. This administration has not a clue.
Is it that they don't have a clue, or do they understand, but they are so hell-bent on virtue signaling green energy that they are willing to put the constituents of California collectively through the absolute ringer and basically give no explanation? They're going to blame it on big oil, extracting record profits. They're going to blame it on something like that instead of, hey, this is self-induced policy, period.
Yes. And, you want to think that they wouldn't do that, but seeing the Palisades and seeing this, my wife on high-speed rail from Guangzhou to Guilin, a train leaving every 30 minutes, and here's our high-speed rail. She sent me pictures of the station, of the one of 3 stations in Guangzhou. I'm just like, wow, okay. But when you see all these, you look at the track record of Newsom and his administration, I can't help but think that your first assertion is absolutely correct. They're hell bent and they don't care. And the thing is, I think it's going to be devastating, totally devastating to the economy. I see
shortages and gas is in everything, oil's in everything. And then you've got, jet fuel, and I'm in basically Seattle, Washington, and we've got some of the highest gasoline costs because of our taxation. And it is a regressive tax, meaning it impacts those on the lower socioeconomic end of things the most.
Yes, it really does. It really does.
The people that the left claims they care about, they're absolutely stomping into the ground. And you see that in the numbers of folks that are leaving California and they're going to Texas, they're going to Florida, they're going to Nevada, they're going anywhere but staying put in California because they can't afford it.
Yeah.
And this is just going to, it's insane.
Anheuser-Busch is shutting down. They're shutting down their Fairfield production plant. That's in the same county. That's in the same county Valero's in, Solano County.
Yeah, because you can't run business. You can't run businesses there anymore.
Yeah, when we were both youngsters, I remember that plant being built, and it's just like they're making beer. There's no water issue there. It's like they're shutting down. Okay, well, California, yeah.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing that this is where it's at, and yet for some reason the folks on the left think that these kind of policies should be put to the test on a national level, and let's run Gavin Newsom for president in 2028. That is a disconnect that I cannot in any way, shape, or form
fathom.
Yeah. No.
Fathom.
No.
Yeah.
It's like, what? How do we get there? And it's like Seattle hiring a socialist mayor. It's based on sheer belief that is incorrect, and we're just going to do it anyway, and we'll see what happens.
Exactly. Well, in California, they're about to find it's not good. It's not good. It's why I hadn't even considered the military impact when I initially got into this. I'm looking at this, like when I went down to the Capitol, and I'm just like, man, this is not going to be good. And the prices, like you said, the people that can least afford it, the people that they supposedly care about, no. And the thing is the shortages. We're at the three of us really think we've been kind of past that, and we're definitely at the breaking point now of what fuel we can get here. What we can logistically actually get into the state. But I mean, Sean, you remember I remember back in the 70s, and then people, it was a big problem, but then you see the toilet paper shortages we had and how crazy people got.
I remember the 70s. I remember waiting in line with my parents, fingers crossed, everybody say a prayer so that we can, it doesn't run out before we get up there.
Yeah, but you
You
didn't.
know?
Back then, even if it did, for the most part, people maintained their composure.
Yeah, they held it together.
It's not going to
Yeah.
happen now. It's not going to
No,
happen now.
no.
I just see it going all the metropolitan areas, and I wrote an article, the Chico Enterprise Record up here, and I said, Chico, you need to understand it's going to happen up here too. We're at the end of the pipeline up here.
Right. Yeah.
This is the real world thing here, and a lot of these a couple of the younger generations, I can see them on their phone. Okay, yeah, well, there's gas over here. They go over there. By the time they get, they're out, and then they just start
Yeah.
going crazy, and then stuff
Right.
starts getting violent, and then
Yeah.
I see where there's not enough National Guard to respond. It can get that crazy. I mean, you just got to drive through Sacramento, drive to San Francisco. It's just real casual observation. This is not good.
No, this is not good. And my thought process is this is going to happen, and then folks will recognize, oh, this is one of those things we should have paid attention to. We didn't, and here we are. Who are we going to blame? It's kind of like the wildfires, right? A lot of prevention could have happened. You could have had water in the reservoir. You could have had water going to the fire hydrants, but you didn't.
You could have people pre-staged. I was a volunteer fireman for 15 years. You pre-stage.
You could have had your mayor not in Africa.
Exactly.
But let's not worry about that. Let's just, I see this.
But all of that shows their attitude and their track record. Like you were asking the question about why. Well, I think you're spot on. I think it's because they're hell bent on getting this green agenda, hell bent on getting these EVs. It's not happening. We don't have an electrical grid that can support it. Everybody with half a brain knows that. And yeah, they just, it's like they were doing the calculations. The CEC was, guessing we were going to be down something like 8 million or 10 million gallons of gasoline a day by now, and that didn't happen. And jet fuel use went up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I always reference. President Biden at the time made the comment during one of his State of the Union addresses, and he said that we're going to be dependent on oil for at least another 10 years. He said that with a straight face, and I was just sitting there thinking, "Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
you're telling that to the American people with a straight face."
Yeah, he told a lot of things to us with his great face. Do you want to jump onto something else here? Still on this? Okay.
Sure.
The professor's doing a study on, I think they're going to be releasing a study on this, the ethanol.
Okay.
So that's coming. I interviewed this, I forget his name, Hayton or something like that, the Fox News story, just a phone interview, but he was asking me questions like, well, they're saying that a lot of the rest of the country's on this 15% ethanol. And I just stopped him right there. I said, you can't compare us to the rest of the country. That's a problem. The rest of the country doesn't have crude oil supply problems. The rest of the country doesn't have refinery problems. The rest of the refinery doesn't have gasoline, jet, and diesel problems. Yeah, I said, you're comparing apples to oranges.
Yeah.
And
right.
I said, you literally are. Go ahead and say that they're going to get the actual 20 cents a gallon in savings of the gasoline, but let's go ahead and give them the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, you're really going to get that. So it's going to be like, well, I don't think people are going to care if their gasoline's $9 or $10 a gallon. It's like, what do you think they're going to do? Oh, thanks, 20 cents off. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the attitude and the intellect towards so many of these issues is just so lacking. Like the California Energy Commission being told to broker a deal on a slightly used refinery in California after you're saying 25 years of pressure to push them out. And then all of a sudden, hey, somebody want to buy a used refinery and take it over in this environment? There's just that massive, not going to happen, disconnect, a huge disconnect. And this thing's going to happen. And you're saying you think something will happen this summer or coming into the summer season. Is that what you're kind of thinking? And prices will get pushed pretty hard north?
Well, I'm thinking Valero's going down, and then the state goes into its infamous summer blend.
Yeah. Yep.
So
when does that happen? What month does that happen?
I honestly forget. Probably
Is it
goes into spring.
springtime? Yeah.
Springtime. Yeah, it's before summer, but it's like maybe May or April. I'm not sure what the
Right.
exact date is.
Yeah. Right. So
That's
sometime
why
after that.
right now, the prices are lower in California because of the price of crude oil, which is drill baby drill. That's all Trump. That is all Trump. And then the fact that we're in our winter blend. That's the only reason why we're getting a break right now.
What about the offshore drilling? And then California screaming, no, 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 that'd be terrible for the environment. Is that viable?
Oh, it's totally viable. Like I said, the professor wrote a really good report with those two gentlemen from Berkeley on it. He says, one thing is you get natural seepage, which contributes to pollution, just crude oil seeping. And when some of these, like these platforms and some of these land-based wells, when they're producing, that seepage actually diminishes. Sometimes it goes away, and then it's contained. Then the oil's being pumped and contained within the system. So it actually in a lot of situations, a lot of locations, it actually reduces emissions and reduces pollution that would just naturally occur from the earth. But yeah, you bring those bring those pipelines, bring the Hondo and those different offshore platforms, start bringing that crude oil, bringing that crude oil into here in Santa Ynez and Los Angeles and those basins. They need to start producing there. That 2,000 wells you're talking about is nothing but a ruse.
Yeah, that's what I thought when I read that. I was like, this is something they can point to, but it doesn't have any real impact on actual production.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because the loss during that time, those wells it's just like by Memorial Day, we got 2,000 wells online. That just doesn't happen.
Right. So, it's a non-event, and yet let's throw it out there because the constituents don't really understand how this all works together, and they're going to believe it. Yeah, and they're going to say,
"Oh, look at that!
Okay.
Look what the governor's doing. Yeah, good.
This is so great, so great."
Yeah, exactly.
And the thing I hammer on is you're importing so much oil on the big oil tankers that are, arguably kick off some of the most emissions into the environment of any machinery on the planet.
Yep, oil, and then back to the products. Same thing. You're shipping the products over here. You're polluting the atmosphere with the refineries that this is coming. That these products are being made at or not. They don't have anywhere near our emissions standards. I mean, we're talking national, not just California.
Right.
They don't have anywhere near the emission standards that we do. And then I go back to how many of these India especially is buying Russian crude oil. So here we are. This is Gavin Newsom's policies in direct conflict with federal orders where we're not supposed to be supporting Russia. We're telling China and them, we don't want you buying Russian oil, but here's our countries we're getting the fuel from that we shouldn't be getting the fuel from. They're buying Russian oil. So we are effectively supporting the Ukrainian war.
It's so crazy, and it's all out there for everybody to see. But nobody really wants to connect the dots, because if they did, this isn't good.
Yeah, the sad part is the dots aren't. I mean, Sean, the dots aren't that hard to connect.
No. Hey, what I always say is, if a real estate guy can figure it out somewhat, then the rest of the country should have a shot at it. So what are you doing, Mike? You've put the professor together, you've put Stan Ellis together, and you're getting the word out. What are you doing to get the word out?
Well, ironically, I have my pastor at my church totally believes in this. I have Bible study Thursday morning, and it's kind of cool. The first thing we do is we talk about, hey, what's the latest update, and basically I give a briefing in the morning at my Bible study with the guys.
Wow, yeah.
But the pastor, we're going to be on radio talk. Three of us are going to be on radio talk show on Sunday out of Redding. Aaron Ryan, one of LaMalfa's workers, the lady that works for LaMalfa, has a radio show out of Redding, so we're gonna be doing that. I'm trying, we're trying to we did one recording, as I actually sent him my pastor a copy of your report that you did, kind of a little Rush Limbaugh. Actually, I watched a lot of your podcasts. It's fantastic. You do a great job. You really do.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
No, you really
I
do.
try.
It reminds me a little bit of Rush. You're just not shuffling through papers.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm shuffling through websites.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the technology's changed, but I'm trying to put out shorts now.
Yep.
That's what me and Ron, Pastor Ron, were saying. We're going to put out a couple more shorts, and we're going to record again next week and keep putting out shorts. I'm trying to figure out. I'm not, it's kind of funny. You can chuckle at me, but I used to run nuclear reactors in the Navy, and I ran the Valero Refinery. But on computers and some of the stuff with getting stuff out, I'm not the best at it. So I'm trying to figure out kind of where do I put these shorts? How do I get them out? I'm working. Katie Grimes is putting me in contact with different people. She did that article, actually a few articles on the Globe. Stan's put me in contact with her. But yeah, I'm just trying to get the word out. It's, one thing you said, Sean, and it's so true. We're past the point of no return. We're absolutely past the point of no return. We need federal intervention now. I've been told a couple of things that been told a couple of different things. I pointed out to the professor, we all of us communicate, obviously, but I'm like, well, they don't get, the Secretary of the Interior, the Secretary of Energy, they're talking about crude oil and the impacts of crude oil with California, and they're right. But, I said, it seemed like they're missing what is the more critical issue right now, the fuel. And I was told in no uncertain terms that, Mike, they're not missing that issue. Professors, he deals with a lot of these people all the time.
Okay. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
they're not missing it. It's there. People are aware. They know it's happening, and it's a matter of when.
Yeah, he basically told me the Joint Chiefs of Staff know, the Pentagon knows, and it's on somebody's desk that we all know.
Because when you guys first put out that report, it was like, where are these? You guys came out of nowhere, right?
Right.
You kind of literally came out of nowhere, and there was this explosion of information. And I'm like, wow, this is something. I need to focus on this because nobody else is saying the quiet part out loud, which is this is not sustainable. And this is going to have a massive impact on daily life in not only California, but Arizona, Nevada, the West Coast.
It's US, the whole country.
Yeah, it's the whole country. Security. Our security is at stake. And yet, we're pointing at 2,000 oil wells that will have basically no impact. And hey, could we find a buyer? It's laughable at best because they're so hell-bent on this green, clean energy, which is great and all, but is not a solution for what we've got going on today. We're dependent upon oil.
We're dependent upon other countries, some that don't necessarily like us, and we got other countries that, there's so many factors. It's like I wrote that point of no return to send it to Katie, and then she wrote her article. But I'm just like, after talking to her, I said, no, the thing is, these I'm just sitting there and it's like, these events have occurred in the last 2 months. All of these events have occurred.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You bullet pointed them, and it's like, these are historical facts. These are not anything in question. These happened. And when they happen moving forward, we're going to be in a world of hurt.
And my numbers too, a lot of the numbers, some of them I'm estimating, but a lot of the numbers, you have Valero, the production like with Phillips 66 and stuff like that. Those are exact numbers within plus or minus 5%. Valero's exact. But, I've had a couple of people, oh, what is your source? My source is me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's right there.
When I met the professor down in Southern California, like I said, I had seen him before. So, man, I'd like to meet that guy. Well, there was a Prop 50 function the night before. So we got there, and I was with Stan Ellis's aide, Cody, and the professor, he sees me, he comes walking over to me. Mike said, thanks so much for getting on board this with us. He said, it is so incredible that we're going to have your perspective, you know. And I'm thinking, this guy is a genius. I mean, if he says your math's wrong, your math's wrong, you know. I mean,
Right. Right.
and he's been
Yeah.
so involved in the industry for 50 years. He's been studying the economics of the industry. And then Stan, back when he gives the South Dakota School of Mines, got his own businesses. He started out when he came to California. He was doing drilling and working in oil wells. And
So
then
he's
we
got a
found out,
background as well.
oh, he has
Yeah.
a big time background,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he worked at Valero. He worked at Flying J at the same times that I did. He was just doing different stuff where I was working in the control room, running the place. He was outside, and then he had his businesses, and so Stan's got a ton of experience. The professor's got a ton of experience. When you combine the three of us. Here goes my math.
Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
combine the three of us, it's about 120 years of very extensive refinery and refining industry experience. And that's why Stan called me down. Stan got the professor, involved in it. And yeah, it's been a fantastic collaboration.
It was really interesting because it was like, we kind of knew some of this stuff. We knew this was happening with the refineries, but then nobody was talking about what are the impacts.
Right.
And it's what are the impacts that people need to recognize, because that is connecting the dots that otherwise we're just left with, well, Governor Newsom said this and Representative whomever said this, and now we're hosed.
Right.
California is going through all of these crazy things to create green energy. Washington State is as well. Oregon, West Coast, they're all going down that. And the bottom line is without China and India being on board, none of what we're doing makes a darn bit of difference. That's my opinion. How does any of this take place knowing that as your context?
Well, I'm not totally sure on that one. I mean, we're the problem goes back to we're very reliant on them right now, and we're getting more and more reliant on them.
What I'm saying is that they are not into clean energy at all. So their emissions just go right to the...
Yeah, we talked about that before. All these countries, the tankers come in here, all the different tankers, all the different refineries. Yeah. No, they don't. We're emitting, I couldn't even put a number on it. I don't think anybody could, but hell, 100,000, 1,000, 10,000 times the emissions that our refineries put out. I mean, easily.
How does that make any sense whatsoever?
It doesn't.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
Nope.
It just flat out doesn't. So
nope.
Why are we doing this?
Well, like you said, you get these people are stuck and just hell bent on, well, we're going to do our green energy here, no matter how much it hurts us, no matter how much it hurts our public, no matter how much it hurts our military. And, we just got to make sure, however, we get the supply, it keeps coming somehow, some way. I really don't know, Sean. It totally baffles me.
It's a head scratcher, isn't it? It's like, why are you doing that knowing that at a minimum, China and India are just not going down this road at all. And until everybody does, it's really, and even when everybody does, it's still not going to have that much of an impact on the overall environment.
Yeah, there's one thing my wife told me quite a while ago that puts this in its perspective. And what you're asking is, she was, you look up some pictures of it sometime. Guilin, Guilin. That's where she's from, Guilin, China.
Okay.
And her first thing she told me was the air is very clean in Guilin.
Okay.
When I saw her pictures of Guangzhou, like the train station, yeah, you could see it. Remember the Beijing Olympics? That was one of her first. That was one of her first. Tell me when we go to Guilin, you'll really like it. The air's clean in Guilin.
So it's all relative, right? It's all relative. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no, that's not. It's not necessarily something we would say as a qualifier to begin, something like that. But she just made it a point to tell me that. It's like, it goes back to, like you said, the refineries, the ships, and everything else that they do, and everything else they do, the way they do their business, all their coal plants. They don't. We got our coal. We got our clean, clean coal. I don't think they care about clean coal.
Right. Yeah. It's a non-issue. It's a
Non-issue.
non-issue. And here we are, United States, virtue signaling a bunch of this stuff. And it's literally pulling out a gun and just shooting yourself in the foot, California collectively right now.
Yes.
And it has implications throughout the country. So you're going to work on putting out some shorts. What other kinds of things are you doing to get the word out on this topic?
Just what I can is word of mouth. I got my buddies. I need to figure out a couple more ways, to get like maybe a YouTube channel, stuff like that. Ron just seems to think we should do shorts at first. A lot of this stuff I'm kind of relying on other people to help me out with it and get it done and get it going.
But you've got so much knowledge that needs to go into a long form basis, and that's YouTube.
Okay.
You just do. And you do the shorts. You take your long form content, your half an hour long videos interviewing whomever or just talking about individual issues as they come up, and you clip those down into your minute shorts to drive traffic to your YouTube channel. You put those on Instagram, you put them on TikTok, where all the kids are looking. And shorts are great. I think anything at this point, Mike, that you can do to get the word out is better than the alternative, which is we all just wait for this to happen and go, oh, how'd that happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Because some of us are aware and we're like, okay, this is coming down the pipeline. What does that look like? And what can we do? And, here we are. I think we're 6 months out from having something pretty major happen this summer. And sounds like you do too. And
the professor does. And if Wilmington goes down, Valero's Wilmington refinery goes down, all hell's going to break loose. The professor's exact words, that they go down, and he says, Mike, I think they're going to shut it down too. It's going to be hell in a handbasket.
But the flip side to that, Mike, is get that YouTube channel up, because you're going to have podcasts for days, weeks, months as it's happening, as it's unfolding in real life.
In real time. Yeah.
Yeah. In real time. Just boom, boom, boom. Yeah, no, it's a wild time to be sitting on the sidelines watching some of this kind of stuff and then recording podcasts, because then you can look back on, hey, I was kind of right, and you'll be in the same boat. Hey, I talked about that. I identified that. I threw that out there. A bunch of people didn't listen.
Between the two of us combining our knowledge, I was like, I don't know, 80%, pick a number, 85% sure I was right. But with combining my knowledge with the professor and with Stan, I know we're right. It's not a matter. You do too, Sean. You're not. Yeah. You got enough common. You got plenty of common sense. That's really all it takes is some common sense.
I know. I know. You know what? A lot of it comes down to, Mike, is math.
Yeah.
Math. Do we have enough? No. What's going to happen when you constrict supply? Prices go up. Oh,
through the roof.
Yep. Through the roof. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Mike, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate all your input. Get that YouTube channel up. We'll subscribe. And as these topics unfold, I'd love to hear from you some more.
Yeah, that's no problem, Sean. I'll
okay.
Anything else comes up, I'll text you and we'll go for it.
Yeah.
No, it's no
that'd
problem.
Be great. I appreciate you reaching out, and thanks for being on News for Reasonable People, Mike.
Yep. Take care, everybody.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.